we're going to start off, as Rich alluded to, we're going to talk about the Vitocal 100S and 200S ductless and ducted air-to-air heat pumps. We're going to start with the ductless presentation, as that keeps it nice and tidy, the difference between ductless and ducted, and when you would use either or. So the objectives for this presentation are to introduce both the 100S and 200S Vitocal single zone and multi-zone ductless systems. So these will all be considered ductless heat pumps, and also to explain the benefits and features and why these systems are ideal for providing space heating and cooling, to providing comfort from residential even up into light commercial applications where heat pumps are a good solution. So this video is more of a kind of housekeeping. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Ductless, as they call mini splits. This is an air-to-air heat pump. So in heating operation, it takes the heat from the outdoor air, brings it indoors. And in cooling operation, it does the reverse. It takes the heat from the indoors and brings it outside. This is very similar to our air-to-water heat pump product that we launched late last year, or early last year, I'm sorry. The difference being this is air-to-air. This is not a hydronic system. So like Viessmann is known for hydronics, this is an air-to-air heat pump product. So the benefits of these ductless products, the Vitocal 100S and 200S, are high efficiency. So you may be familiar with the inverter technology in these ductless heat pumps. That's what allows the efficiencies to be upwards of 28 SEER2 and over 13 HSPF for heating efficiency. So you're going to get extreme efficiency out of these units. You'll be able to provide that to your end customer. Also, of course, energy savings is a benefit of that high efficiency. Extremely quiet. So these heat pumps are very quiet. Often you can stand next to the outdoor unit and not even realize that it's running. The outdoor units can be as quiet as a refrigerator running indoors, and the indoor units can be whisper quiet depending on which fan speed is selected. Ductless heat pumps give you the flexibility of installation. So as I mentioned, we're going to be going over single and multi-zone. In both of those instances, you have the ability to heat or cool a space without ductwork. So where ductwork was not before, there's no space, it's not a desired trait, you have an option. And within that flexibility comes the choice of indoor units. So we have 6 different indoor unit types that can pair with these ductless systems, both single and multi-zone. And the operation, the performance in cold climates is high heat performance on most of these units. So the operating range is down to -22 in heating and cooling, actually. So you'll see we provide the option or the ability to have low ambient cooling as well. So these units come with base pan and crankcase heaters, which helps their cold climate performance at those low ambients. So a little bit more on the ductless advantages. So this image here is used in our marketing. It's a good representation of what ductless can solve or what challenges ductless can help with. So you provide a more consistent comfort with a ductless system with an air-to-air inverter heat pump, as it's able to maintain a temperature rather than overshoot or undershoot like a 2-stage or a single stage on and off operation. So you're able to have more consistent comfort. The installation is oftentimes less invasive than a complete new duct work or central ducted system. So there's less labor, less materials, and often a shorter installation time with these ductless units. Both the indoor unit and the outdoor unit have variable speed both the motor and the compressor. So that allows the system to modulate, to kind of go back to that first point, to provide that more consistent temperature control. So there'll be a little bit more information, but using feedback from sensors, the system's able to exactly meet the demand and provide heating or cooling in spaces that are previously unconditioned, were uncomfortable due to their location or the ductwork run to that location. So you're able to now bring comfort essentially anywhere. So the units we're talking about specifically in this presentation are the ductless units. The system would consist of an outdoor unit and an indoor unit paired together. So starting with the single zone, we have the Vitocal 100S. So that 100S is a marker for the single zone. So that lets you know it's a one-to-one system. We have from 6,000 to 36,000 BTU on a one-to-one residential single zone. And we do have three sizes larger, 36, 48, and 58,000 BTU that is a light commercial single zone. The 200S is a step up when you want to have multiple zones, hence the name multi-zone, but multiple indoor units per outdoor unit. So we have 18,000 to 48,000 BTU models available, and that's up to 5 zones on one outdoor unit. All of the indoor units below are shared between the single and the multi-zone, so that makes it a lot easier to select your equipment. You don't have to worry that the high wall doesn't work on the multi-zone or vice versa. The only caveat when selecting your equipment is to note that the light commercial outdoor units have specific light commercial indoor units due to the separate communication wire on those larger sizes. Again, when you're selecting equipment and your product data and your installation manual or resources, just ensure that if you are selecting a light commercial single zone, that you do have a compatible indoor unit. So as I mentioned, the three main components in the system: indoor unit, outdoor unit, and a controller. So all of the units come with a wireless controller, all the indoor units. Some indoor units come also with a wired controller, and the wired controller is optional for all units. A little bit on the inverter technology that we've been mentioning. So the indoor unit and the outdoor unit communicate based on a series of sensors. So return air, refrigerant sensors, outdoor air, the sensor on the heat exchanger, which depending on which mode it's in, that's why it's called heat exchanger sensor, not condenser or evaporator sensor, because when you're in heating, when you're in cooling, they're considered different. But using all those sensor inputs, the system is able to more precisely maintain. So that red line is the inverter compressor, much less over and undershooting and more of a consistent runtime, because most of the energy is consumed on startup for these non-inverter type systems. So this yellow line would be representative of a traditional single or two-stage heat pump without a variable speed compressor. So that was kind of an intro to the ductless lineup, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about the outdoor units themselves. Starting off with the nomenclature. So we talked about the 100S, the 200S, but just going over that a little bit more. The Vitocal is for our heat pump products. So we have the Vitocal air to water. Soon we will have a Vitocal water to air. However, from after the Vitocal is where the model number will differentiate to let you know what type of product it is. So this is 100 for single zone, 200 for multi-zone. The S is always going to be there because this is a split system. Outdoor unit is separate from the indoor unit. The next call out that I like to make is the DLC on the model number. So DLC, that will tell you right there, that's a 410A outdoor unit. Once you see DLC, you already know it's an outdoor unit. The next letter will let you know if it's a single zone or a multi-zone unit. And for those light commercial units, there is an L for light commercial. So that also will help you with equipment selection, but it's all laid out in both the price book and the compatibility matrix that we have. So as to make the equipment selection less difficult, or less complicated, if you will. So DLC, it's an outdoor unit. The next letter will tell you whether it's a single zone, light commercial, or a multi-zone. The series is not really going to change at this point. That is for revisions of the product. However, this is a pretty mature product, so the series will remain. H for heat pump. The next big thing I call out is the BTU size. So with those three pieces, the DLC, the next letter after, and the BTU, you can tell right there that's an outdoor unit, that's single zone, 12,000 BTU. Again, you don't need to remember any of these model numbers by heart. This is just, I'm very close to the product, so get kind of a decoding of the model nomenclature. So the actual outdoor units themselves, we have the Vitocal 100S, DLC SRBH, that's the single zone, and we have the DLC LRCH, and that's the light commercial single zone. These are available from 6 to 58,000 BTU. With capacity at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, -15°C, up to 100%. The operating range on these units is from -30°C to 50°C, conversion in parentheses there. With the residential single zone, you're going to get your highest efficiencies, that 1-to-1, with the smaller indoor units compared to the light commercial. All of our outdoor units, regardless of single zone, multi-zone, ductless, or ducted, they all have built-in base pan and crankcase heaters, as well as anti-corrosion coated coils. They also serve as a hydrophilic coating, so to keep dust, debris from sticking, as well as to allow water to shed off easily. These units are out of the box, ready to do low ambient cooling, rated down to -22 degrees Fahrenheit, -30°C. So that's a good option if you do need low ambient cooling. These units can provide that. And then the light commercial sizes is something that is not available with every product line. So we'd like to call that out, that we do have those larger 1-to-1 combinations for ductless. For residential, we have a 10-year warranty. I believe may not come up here, but for the light commercial, for everything that's non-residential, it's a 7-year warranty. So your model numbers there below, we have the 6 all the way up to the 36,000 BTU single zone, and you have your 3 sizes there on that light commercial, 36, 48, and 58. So those are the single zone outdoor units that are available. Of course, HRI certified. And then stepping up to the 200S, if you need multiple zones, we have the multi-zone system available. So shown here in this image, the common question, is there a branch box with these multi-zones? There is not. All of the indoor units land at the outdoor unit. They have their own individual refrigerant connections as well as wiring connections. So that is all individual, and there's no branch box with these installations. We have mostly high heat models, but there are a few standard heat models also available. As I mentioned previously, with the multi-zone, we have up to 5-zone capability, so from 2 to 5 zones. Operating range is the same between the single and the multi-zone, with the caveat that I believe I have it noted below, but the operating range for the regular heat is not as low as the high heat. So this shown here is the high heat operating range. Efficiencies are still very high, not going to be as high as the 1-to-1 residential single zones, but still good, very high efficiency, good energy savings can be provided. Again, base pan crankcase heater, coated coils, low ambient cooling. Noted on this, as well as previously it should have been, there is an optional 24-volt interface, but we'll get into that on the indoor unit section. and 10-year warranty for the multi-zone as well. So for your zone selection, the 18K, 36K, and 48K are standard heat, with the 36 and 48 having a high heat option. So as you can see in this chart, we have 2 zones with the 18K, 3 zones with the 24K, 4 zones with the 30 and 36, and 5 zones with the 48K. And your model numbers below. So the DLCM, that's a multi-zone. DLCMR, that's the standard heat. MH for high heat. But again, you don't need to remember all the model numbers, but those are just some tips in the nomenclature. So that was the overview of the single zone outdoor units, the multi-zone outdoor units, the ranges, capacities, the performance generally, but some standard features that all of the outdoor units also have, just a little bit more detail, there's a long list here, as you can see, but starting with the comfort features. So there's an auto restart and auto changeover. The auto restart, if there's an interruption in the system, a power surge or a temporary on-off situation after the time delay for the compressor is over, the system will resume to its previous set point. So it has a memory storage of that. Also, at the indoor unit, you can select auto for auto heat cool switchover. Mentioned previously, base pan and crankcase heater on all of the outdoor units. A whole host of safety features on the outdoor unit. I'm not going to read them all, but pretty standard. Time delay, over temperature, over current, low voltage protection, etc., to protect the outdoor unit and its electronics as well as the components. Largely being that inverter compressor, which is the heart of this system. That's what gives most of the efficiency here, and the variability, the modulation is in that inverter compressor. The systems all have heating setback mode as well, for instances where you want to maintain a level of heat but save on your utility costs if it's an unoccupied space or there's no need to have a higher temperature. And outdoor units as well as indoor units come with onboard diagnostics, and the outdoor units have liquid line pressure taps for in the event that you need to service the refrigerant system. That was the outdoor units. That's half the equation. The other half is the indoor units. I should say are the indoor units. So the Vitocal IND, that's going to be an indoor unit. So if you see a Vitocal IND nomenclature, you already know it's an indoor unit. The next letter is going to tell you what type of unit it is, so that makes it even easier. You can see Vitocal IND, I already know it's a high wall because of the H. The next part of the model number, this is where that DLC comes in. Now we see it's a DLF. So for the indoor unit, it's going to be DLF, outdoor unit DLC. The way I remember it is DLF is a fan coil, ductless fan coil. The next letter is going to let you know if it's a residential or a light commercial indoor unit. The multi-zone, there is no call out for a specific multi-zone indoor unit. As we mentioned, the single zone indoor units are compatible with multi-zone systems, so there's no picking and choosing special indoor units between multi and single zone. The next big call out, again, the series is going to be based on what type of indoor unit it is. So for the high wall, we are in a HCH, the final H being a heat pump. But really, if you go to the BTU, that's going to tell you what size high wall. So I already know Vitocal INDH, that's a high wall. DLF, indoor unit, 12,000 BTU. So that's a 12,000 BTU high wall. All of the indoor units, again, are compatible with single or multi-zone, so you get that flexibility there. And starting out on the indoor units with the high wall. So this is the most popular indoor unit for ductless, both single and multi-zone. The highest efficiency head for the most part, so up to 28 SEER 2. We have a wide range from 6K up to 36K size. Energy Star certified for select systems. So most of these should be Energy Star certified depending on your combination. So the biggest feature for this high wall is this image to the right, to the left here, is the easy maintenance and serviceability of this system. So the blower motor assembly, the entire, not just the motor, but the blower motor, blower wheel, drain pan, louvers, louver motors, they're all removable within minutes. And I'm not exaggerating. Is a few fasteners and a few hand clips. And there's a little animation next to show, but this saves a lot of time if you are servicing or providing maintenance on these units, as that's a pain point with these high wall units, is the difficulty to remove the blower motor for, again, servicing or maintenance. These blower motors, they get caked with dust, dirt, grime, however you want to call it, and that will throw the balance off of the wheel, off the motor. It can even fling condensate out. It creates noise, vibration. So it is something that is a maintenance item to clean. So having that easy removability is a huge feature on this product, as well as the electronics being front and center there in that panel. Some standard things across all of these indoor units are the modes: cool, dry, heat, and fan and auto. So the dry mode is a dehumidification mode, but it is not a replacement for a standalone dehumidifier. It'll allow the remote to have a humidity reading and that you can set for the room, and it'll maintain that. You have louver control, up, down, left, right, fix or swing. Again, it has the built-in humidity sensor for that dry mode. There is an occupancy sensor, which is that circle there on the right of the high wall, and that functions a few different ways. It ties into a few different functions, but what it's able to do at its core is identify when a room is empty or occupied and adjust accordingly. So if it's empty for a certain 30 minutes or more, the system can ramp down to save some energy. And then once occupancy is detected again, it will ramp back up to its previous set point, or not set point, but previous demand performance. And also there's breeze away functions to make sure that the air is not blowing on you specifically. So the occupancy sensor comes into play in a few different functions. There's also follow me function, which turns the remote control into essentially your T1 thermostat. So T1 sensor essentially turns the handheld remote into a thermostat. The system now is taking the reading at the thermostat, or at the controller, I'm sorry, to bring that into its equation, its algorithm, rather than the sensor at the return. If the room is wide or the airflow is not getting to a certain area, using that follow me mode will help to balance out the room. And of course, quiet indoor operation. For these indoor units, most of the accessories are across all indoor units, but I have them listed on each page. There's a 24-volt interface. We'll touch on briefly at the end of this. That allows you to connect a third-party thermostat. And there is a Wi-Fi kit, essentially a dongle that will allow you to connect to a Ductless panel app for the end user to control their set point, and some basic features there. So without further ado, this cool animation to show the high wall features. So one screw, two clips at the bottom, two clips up top, and you just pulled your entire assembly out. We have a nice still image here to kind of go over those locations of those clips. So benefits: filter is easy to remove up top, so it's actually clip in like a magnetic filter that just pops in place rather than it going within the unit and you having to reach over and pull up and out. The e-box electronics are front and center rather than being tucked in and requiring you to remove a lot of components to access, so you have easy access to the electronics. And the biggest thing, as I mentioned, is the blower wheel assembly being removable so easily. And that gives you access to the blower wheel, the drain pan, the motor, the louvers, and the louver motors themselves. So there's 2 clips up top, 2 clips on the bottom, and there's 1 screw behind that right clip, and you can pull out the entire assembly. So that was the high wall. That was, I would say, a star player on the indoor unit team. Next is the 4-way cassette, so the INDC. So these are recessed in the ceiling for 360-degree airflow. When they're finished and installed, that grill panel is essentially flush with the ceiling. So not to go over every single efficiency number, but we have our efficiencies listed, our up tos. We're from 9 to 48,000 BTU, Energy Star certification, same modes that you're going to see on all these indoor units. We have sleep mode and timer, which is also on the high wall. Louver control, you can set fixed or swing. Since these are in the ceiling, concealed, there is a built-in condensate pump that is included with these to help you move that condensate out. Follow Me is a standard feature with all of the indoor units that have the handheld remote. And then again, you have your 24-volt accessory and your Wi-Fi kit. There are cassette grills that can be ordered separately. We also are working on a kitted number to have them all come together with the cassette grill. With the cassette console, but just be mindful, depending on the way you order the product, you can order it separate or you can order it as a kit. And there are 2 different grill part numbers. For 9,000 to 18,000 BTU is a 2x2, and then from 24 to 48,000 is a 3x3 grill. And wireless control is standard. Wired control is optional. So every indoor unit that has a receiver for the remote control that is visible or accessible will come standard with the wireless, and optional will be the wired. Next is the cousin of the 4-way cassette is the 1-way cassette. So you have a more limited capacity range on this. So 6, 9, 12, or 18,000 BTU. With those capacities are selectable by dip switch, so we'll see that. But as far as features, same modes, up, down, right, left, louver control. So the big deal with this is it's 1-way airflow. So it's also flush with the ceiling once it's installed. However, it's for applications where the 4-way may not be desired. This is more of a form factor of a ceiling grill. So that's another option of an indoor unit to be used. Follow Me features standard quiet indoor operation. The big thing is the size. The form factor can be installed between joists. I have an image of that in the next slide, but current and future joist spaces, this unit can fit in between those. As you see there, the minimum spacing required is 14.5 inches. Installed with hooks or using the casing brackets, has a built-in disconnect switch. And unlike the 4-way cassette, this can be installed up against a corner in a hallway because it does not require the same clearances as a 4-way cassette. And this unit is compatible with the 24-volt accessory as well as the Wi-Fi kit. And there is standard wireless controller, optional wired controller. There's your image there, kind of showing how that installs there in between joist spaces. So the next indoor unit is the floor consoles. This is specifically the 12K size. So you'll see what I mean in the next slide. So this is a floor console only. What that means is not installed literally on the floor, but on the wall, slightly above the floor or floor standing on the wall, similar to an electric baseboard type of product. Standard modes, cool, heat, dry, fan, auto. You have your same louver control, fixed swing. This does have dual air outlets, top and bottom, that you can control independently as well. The remote control still has the follow me sensor feature, and you have your 24-volt accessory on this indoor unit. Standard with the wireless controller, optional with a wired controller. This is a good option for a radiator type installation, baseboard installation if you're replacing one. That's really where we would see these used more. And the step up from that 12K size is the next chassis of the floor console, which is ceiling and floor. So under ceiling or on the floor as the previous console. So it has two ways to install this. Has a relatively slim profile. It's not going to be flush with the ceiling in that installation, but it provides a wide throw of air with that. Yeah, I mean that wide footprint, wide thin footprint. So still get high efficiencies. We have sizes 18 up to 58,000 BTU. Again, Energy Star certification depending on which unit combination you have. Yeah, it says 12K. That's incorrect. This is 18 to 58,000. But other than the form and the capacity, it is essentially the same product as the previous 12K size. So this has compatibility with the 24-volt interface and the Wi-Fi kit. Noting that it's all in the documentation as well as our compatibility matrix, but there is a different Wi-Fi kit for certain models. So this is the 401. Previously, we were looking at the 601. But again, it's clear in the documentation. And this image down here is showing the different ways to install this product, whether it's on the floor or on the under ceiling, and the airflow pattern. Standard wireless, optional wired controller. The next indoor unit we have is the INDD Slim Duct. So we have the Slim Ducted unit. So this is a kind of a unique ducted on a ductless unit. So it's sort of a hybrid between ductless and ducted. This allows you to do, short runs of duct work, but have this air handler, this indoor unit concealed, whether it's within a wall or a ceiling, because it can do vertical or horizontal installation. So 9 to 58,000 BTU. Standard modes. As I mentioned, it can be installed vertically or horizontally. The return is configurable with rear or bottom return. The high static models are available for up to 0.8 inches of static. These are able to be set up for outside air intake. And there are condensate pumps included with the units. So for sizes 9 to 18,000, the condensate pump is external and must be connected in the field. The sizes 24 and up are built in to the system. There's still the follow me setting at the remote, still have 24-volt interface accessory and Wi-Fi kit. The difference here being that since this is a concealed unit, it comes standard with the wireless, but also a wired controller. And that wired controller acts as the receiver for the wireless as well. Next is the, I would say last but not least on the ductless indoor units, is the multi-position air handler. So, and we'll talk more about ducted solutions here coming soon, but this is a hybrid solution of a ducted air handler that can go on a ductless outdoor unit. So that allows you to connect to existing ductwork. You can replace a furnace or a fan coil, and these units are usually hidden from view in a closet, attic, basement, crawl space, etc. So you're still going to get high efficiencies on this, but there's some efficiency loss due to the coil size with this unit. It's available 18,000 to 60,000 BTU. However, we'll talk a little bit more. There are some asterisks on that, with the 36, 48, and 60,000 being the light commercial air handlers. So depending on your application with the ductless, you may be limited to a 36,000 BTU, which is why we would step up to what we're going to talk to next here shortly is the ducted heat pumps. So features of the indoor unit, same modes. This has multi-position, so four-way installation, upflow, downflow, left or right. So as I mentioned, there is some caveat to the compatibility. So multi-zones cap out at 36,000 BTU, regardless of the outdoor unit capacity. You can only have as large as a 36,000 BTU air handler on a multi-zone, and you can only have up to 2 air handlers maximum. So if you require larger BTUs, that's when you'll look at a ducted application. So the blower motor is an automatic airflow technology motor that adjusts for static pressures up to 0.8. Quiet operation. The cabinet is rated for less than 2% air leakage. And there is, I apologize, you actually don't need the 24-volt interface for this unit because it's built in. And the Wi-Fi kit is available as well. But this unit allows you to compare comes out of the box ready to pair with a 24-volt thermostat. And there is an accessory electric heat kit available as well. So the wireless controller comes standard as well as a wired controller. So this indoor unit, you have the choice of using the included wired controller, or if you prefer to use a 24-volt thermostat, the indoor unit already has the connections for that. And as far as accessories, a little bit more information on what we've been talking about. So there's the 3 main groups of accessories available. There's the wired wall controllers, the KSACN. There's a few different models depending on which indoor unit you're selecting. They have functions. So the wired controller allows full control of the indoor unit using the RS-485 protocol. So if there are additional functions, for example, in the high wall, having a turbo mode, that's when those nuances of having the correct control would matter. And some of them are programmable, some are not. So we have a suite of wired controllers available. We have the Wi-Fi kits. There are 2 models of Wi-Fi kit depending on which indoor unit you're selecting. And then there's the 24-volt interface, which acts as an intermediary between the outdoor and the indoor unit to allow you to power and have control by a 24-volt thermostat. So in this case, example is an Ecobee. And you would need one of these 24 volts at every indoor unit that you would want to have a thermostat. Compatible with single or multi-zone, all of these. So the benefits of the ductless, minimal installation. There's no ductwork required. You don't have to braze. You only really need to make a penetration for your line set and your wiring if there's not already one there. The inverter technology provides a more consistent comfort and also provides energy savings. You have the flexibility with this line to provide heating and cooling in single or multiple zones and with capacities from 6 to 58,000 BTU or up to 4 tons in a multi-zone. And the outdoor units, you save up to 75% footprint versus a top discharge heat pump, so traditional heat pump. And we have cold climate performance with up to 70% nearly at -30°C. Depending on which unit you select, we have upwards of above 100% capacity at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe it's -15°C. And again, just to recap on the ductless, we'll pause for a second for any questions on the ductless, and then we'll transition to ducted to kind of paint that full picture. But for the ductless, we're compact, quiet, efficient, easy to install, relatively compared to a full system of a central ducted. And we have a wide range of sizes from residential up to even light commercial applications with low ambient performance and heating and cooling down to -30°C. So I'll pause for a second.
Yeah, so Oliver, nice job. We've been kind of keeping an eye on the Q&A, and so far no questions. So you must be providing all of the relevant information. So
So, all right, give me 1 second here. I'm gonna pause my share and then share the next presentation here. All righty. Ducted, share, ducted. Here we go. All right, can you see my screen?
no, still seeing the, okay,
Is
there you
it
go.
the orange
Looks,
Viessmann?
yep, you got it now. You're good.
All right. So we talked about ductless, and there was some ducted in there. But now we're going to talk about strictly ducted. So the ductless was really, a ductless lineup, air to air heat pumps that have some ducted options, really for a hybrid setup, if you will. But if you want to go full, if your application is full central ducted, then that's when you're going to look to the Vitocal 100S ducted solution. So we're going to talk about the 100S air to air heat pump that is for ducted, so central ducted. And we're going to talk about why it's ideal and the differences between ductless and ducted. So a lot simpler of a lineup compared to the ductless as far as equipment selection. We have an outdoor unit, we have an indoor unit. That hasn't changed. The difference is the application and some of the technology. So we like to say this is like the best of both worlds. It's ductless technology that mates right up to central ducted infrastructure. So the line sets are larger to match what's traditionally in a central ducted system. There's already 24-volt capability built into both the outdoor and the indoor unit, as well as the EEV in the outdoor unit is only in heating, and that allows you to only insulate one of the suction lines. So if you're going to a retrofit, you already have a line set there that's insulated only on the suction line instead of having to run an all new line set for a ductless unit and insulate both lines. You now can just pop this outdoor unit, an indoor unit in the place of the previous equipment and install it, and you're good to go. So a little bit more information on that. Similar benefits you're going to see to the ductless, because really what we're doing is we're taking up all the good things from ductless and pairing them with a central ducted system. So you're getting above up to 18.1 SEER2, still quiet operation, but this is more geared towards retrofit and new construction that is central ducted focus. So where standard line sets are planned to be used or already used, where there's a desire to use a 24-volt thermostat, and there's central duct work, this is going to likely be the ideal solution. And as I mentioned before, you get the compact inverter footprint outside of a ductless system, but indoors you get the same indoor unit and performance that you'd expect for a central ducted, as well as the capacity range. And we'll talk a little bit more on the standard heat versus high heat, but we have a high heat and a standard heat option, but the range here is for the high heat down to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit, negative, I believe that should be negative 30 C, but we'll correct that. So the Vitocal 100S ducted heat pump. Why would you go ducted? So this image here we use in our marketing kind of gives a good detail. You can reuse your line sets, reuse your duct work. In certain cases, if the indoor unit is compatible with the outdoor unit, you even are able to match this outdoor unit to an existing indoor unit. Of course, you have to, check if you want an AHRI listed match. That's a conversation. However, the system is very flexible in how you can apply it. And you can use an air handler or a case coil and furnace. So the case coil is on the way to us. As far as availability, we should have available by the end of this year. So as far as the nomenclature goes, we see it's 100S because there's only a 1-to-1. There is no multi-zone. S for split. It's still DLC because it's a 410A outdoor unit. The addition of that U, so previously it was an S or an L or an M. Now it's only a U for ducted. So DLCU, you know it's a ducted outdoor unit. And then your size there. So it's always going to be URA for the series. Heat pump, these are all heat pumps. And then your BTU size there. So this is a 12,000. So that's actually not a model. So they start at 18. So we'll need to update that to 18. But a big call out is the high heat versus standard heat. So ABK is going to be your high heat. AAK is standard heat. What we stock and suggest for the most part is the high heat based on rebate eligibility and performance in cold climates. However, we understand there's some jobs or customers request the standard heat, but largely in Canada, we see the high heat as what is needed. So the outdoor units themselves, they're visually almost identical to the ductless units, with the difference being some of the hardware in the connection points. So 18 to 60,000 BTU. These are all 208, 230. Variable speed compressor, so you still have that technology. We have high heat and standard heat models. So a big difference on this outdoor unit is that you have the ability to wire to the indoor unit either 24 volt or use the 2-wire RS485 connection. And what that 24 volt mode is meant to do is to pair with a non-communicating indoor unit. So if there's a fan coil in place that the customer, accepts, they want to reuse that, it's 410A compatible, you guys work that out, then you actually can, there's a dip switch you can select, and you'll run thermostat wire from this outdoor unit to the indoor unit, and you can hook it up to essentially any 24 volt system. Another difference is the line set. So this is a traditional line set, and you will only insulate the suction line. Again, base pan heater is factory installed. On the high heat, we have 100% capacity at 5 degrees on the 2-ton model and over 80% at the rest of the models for high heat. We have allowable piping lengths up to 213 feet, but that's all listed in the documentation. From an operating range standpoint, so the high heat is down to -30°C in both heating and cooling, and up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 55°C. With the regular heat having a much more, I say, milder operating range of -15 to 55 in cooling and -15 to, no, sorry, there's some conversion error there, but essentially -5 degrees on the heating side. Okay, I see. Yeah. So it's 5 on cooling, -5 on heating. And there are your model numbers. So they're just AAK, ABK, high heat. But again, we have sizes 18 to 60,000 BTU, and these are all the ducted outdoor units. So again, conventional refrigerant line sets. The outdoor unit and indoor unit aren't wired the same way as ductless, so mind the installation instructions. This is more of like a traditional installation where there's power at the indoor and outdoor unit separately, and there's a built-in 24 volt interface, as well as a solution for pairing with the furnace case coil that we discussed. And there's EEV in heating mode only, so that allows there to be an EEV or a TXV at an indoor unit, whereas the ductless units have EEVs on heating and cooling at the outdoor, and that would interfere with the metering device at an indoor unit, and that requires, in some cases, modification. So that's a reason why you'd want to go with the ducted if you're just strictly ducted. So there are your line sets. You can see it's 3/8, 3/4 instead of a 1/4 inch and 3/8. And there's your different connections. So the S1 and S2 is for your RS-485, your full communication. And in the event that your indoor unit does not have full communication, or for whatever reason you want to wire it 24 volt, these are your terminals here for your 24 volt connections. And onto the indoor units, IND for indoor unit. These are all going to be IND-As because they're air handlers and A coils. DLF for the indoor unit, U for ducted, and then really your capacity there. So this is a ducted 18K air handler for the ducted units. So for the four-way multi-position air handler, this is the same air handler essentially that was seen on the ductless, but this has the line sets for the ducted, and it does have a EEV, whereas the ductless air handler does not have a metering device at the indoor, since that's controlled by the EEVs outside. 18 to 60,000 BTU, standard modes, built-in 24-volt interface, same multi-position as the ductless air handler, same static pressure, automatic blower motor adjustment, same quiet operation, cabinet, accessories. We have the electric heat kit, so same EHK MC that's used on the ductless air handler. Standard wireless controller. However, the wired controller is optional on this ducted air handler because this is likely to be paired with a 24-volt thermostat for a ducted application. We didn't want to include this, or it's not included, so that's an option as needed. Whereas the ductless is more expected to use the wall controller to maintain that full ductless communication. And last but not least, we have the case coil, the DLFULAH. So this is coming soon. We have it on the way. It's a cased A coil, aluminum coil, multi-position insulated cabinet. Again, that allows you to pair with your furnace of choice. So this is an AHRI listed match that does not have a specific furnace. So you can take that outdoor unit in this coil and put it on any furnace that is capable or it matches. So that's your option for crossover dual fuel option. And there is a additional coil interface accessory that is used to achieve the AHRI rating. What it includes is a interface that allows the outdoor unit to communicate with RS-485 to this case coil. Comes with a return and a pipe temperature sensor, as well as a wall controller. So that gives you the full modulation of the system with this case coil. And that's what is used with AHRI listing. I will call out, however, that it is not included with the case coil and it is not technically required for operation. You can select 24-volt mode at the outdoor unit and just communicate directly with the thermostat in the furnace. However, you will not have the full range of modulation that you would have when you use this accessory coil interface. And the widths are available 14.5, 17.5, 21, and 24.5. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. So one question that may come up, or a distinction to be made, is the difference between the ductless in the air handler and the ducted in the air handler. There are two different model numbers on the air handler, so you don't want to mix those up. The ductless, really the largest use case would be in a multi-zone application where you want a mix of ducted and ductless. You can do a single one-to-one air handler with ductless. However, with the line sets and the 24-volt interface, it is a better solution to use the central ducted system on a one-to-one basis. And with a multi-zone, you're limited to only 36,000 BTU maximum size, whereas on an air handler, whereas the central ducted, you can go up to 5 tons. So really, if you want to mix or you're doing a hybrid system, the ductless air handler may be the right choice. But if you're strictly focusing on ducted, central ducted, then the ducted application or the ducted system would be the best. So benefits of this ducted system: traditional installation, easy to retrofit. You can upgrade the system of existing system without a full overhaul. We have the air handler indoor unit available that'll either replace a fan coil, replace a furnace, or and it has the automatic airflow technology, four-way position, multi-position cabinet, and the tight less than 2% air leakage. Again, inverter technology, that's where you're getting all this efficiency and performance. You do save space with the footprint of the outdoor unit, and base pan and crankcase heater comes standard on all the units with the up to 69% capacity at negative 30°C. So recapping, similar to the ductless, the ducted is quiet, compact, and efficient. Yeah, it's a minimal installation if you're already in a central ducted application. And we have sizes from 18 up to 60,000 BTU, so even some light commercial application potentially. And low ambient heating and cooling down to negative 30°C.